Hi friends, it's Carly and I'm back again with another review. So at the end of my last video, I asked you guys to put in the comments which Deadpool Strong Guy Bath series figure you would like me to review next. So I only got 2 votes, they were the same, and I took it over to Facebook to see what everybody thought, and the consensus was resounding. We will be looking at Piratepool today. So I have an embarrassing confession to make about my collection. I only have one Deadpool figure. It is a 375. I absolutely love it, but my collection has been hurting for Deadpool for such a long time that is part of the reason I was so excited about this series. And I know there are 2 Deadpools in the series, but I'm going to call this my first one ever because it's the first I opened, and I'm really glad that this is my first Deadpool in my collection because he's super impressive. So while we take a look at him, let me tell you a little bit about the origins of Piratepool. So Wade Wilson, this is from a 2008 run of Deadpool that was written by Daniel Way. This is actually, the pirate portion of the book is a 2-issue interlude in the middle of the 20-run series. So it's issues 13 and 14. And this reference that we're getting here on the figure is the cover art by Jason Pearson on issue 14. And I can show you what that looks like. I have it here. Let's see if we can get good focus. Yeah. So this is the cover of issue 14 of the 2008 run, and this is the source material for the Piratepool that we have in this collection. So in the comic book, prior to the pirate episode, Norman Osborn has hired Wade Wilson to do some mercenary work for a stupid sum of money. Of course, he finishes the work, and then Norman is loath to pay him. He tries to have him killed. There's a lot of back and forth. Ultimately, you know, Wade's not going to give up, and he does end up getting this crazy amount of money that is literally like in gold coins. So he goes off with his money for a little while and gets bored pretty quickly. So he gets in touch with Hydra Bob and decides that they are going to go off and be pirates. He knows about this island where all of these rich and wealthy people sort of vacation and lounge, and he's going to go and you know, rob one of their yachts, I think is kind of his plan. It is a very silly story. If you're like me and most of your exposure to Deadpool has been sort of through the movies that have come out recently, I think that you'll really like this run. It's very silly. It's a little bit on the adult side. You can kind of tell that, like, when Ryan Reynolds was like crafting his version of Deadpool, that this is the type of writing that he was going from, because it could easily have been a scene in either of the movies that recently came out. So it's a really fun little run. I only read issues 13 and 14 just so I would know what's going on with Piratepool, but I highly recommend it. I'm going back now and reading the entire series. Like I said, it's only a 20-issue run, but the writing is really fun. It's very irreverent and very Deadpool, and the stuff that goes on in these 2 issues is pretty hilarious. He ends up getting a blind navigator. There is an enemy pirate named Pirate Whackbeard because he only has like 3 little strings of beard hair that he's able to grow. It's all just very Deadpool. So I recommend it. Again, I found the entire run on Marvel Unlimited. I'm really starting to like that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Typically, I like to have a comic to hold in my hand, so I've been sort of resistant to digital, but being able to just pick up the book right here and now and read it has been kind of invaluable to my research and my reviews, so I'm enjoying it more and more. Let me know what you guys think of Marvel Unlimited. Okay, so with all that said, let's go ahead and look at Wade Wilson as Piratepool. So he is really done up to the max here. He has all of the accessories that you need with a pirate. He has this awesome pirate hat. He's got a bandana. The hat is not removable. His vinyl cape. He comes with a sword. What are these called? A cutlass, right? He's got a pistol. It's hard to focus on everything. He's got a pistol here, and then he's got a second sword. So he's got, you can see here, he's got places for his swords. Sorry, it's difficult to focus on all of this filigree and everything that he's got going on. So I'm going to take the accessories out of his hands so we can look at the figures. Every single part of this is really sculpted beautifully and painted like to the nines. I'm really impressed with the detail that they put into these accessories to make them feel extra piratey, if that's a word. The Cutlass is, you know, it's actually, the handle on it is, or the, you know, the handle and hilt are functional, so they actually help him to grip it better by putting his whole fist through this handle right here. And it's okay. You know, the quality of it is like some of the more common Marvel Legends swords that we get, meaning that it's a little bit thin and flimsy. As I'm holding it up right now, I can actually see the light through the blade, so that's not the greatest, but the sculpt on it is really cool. And as you saw when he's holding it, it looks really, really neat. So I'm not really mad at that. It's the same with his other more typical katana. Yeah, so it's very thin and flimsy. I can see the light through it, but the sculpt is nice and he holds it well, and it also fits in its holster really well. There are no additional hands or anything like that that come with this figure. And I do have to say right off the bat that, you know, reviewing this is going to be a little bit different than a lot of the figures that I review. So while this is technically a highly articulate figure, he has got a lot going on in this costume that is going to prevent us from making great use of it. The reason I'm not mad at that is because it's such a specific look from such a specific time in this particular story that it really works just by looking this way. So I almost consider it more of a statue than a figure that I would be like posing a lot of different ways. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. He does have all the articulate points, but you're just not going to be able to get the most out of them because of his piratey costume. Now, you can pop the head off, of course, and remove his cape, which will give us a little, a slightly better look at. So this comes right off if you take off his head, which will give us a slightly better look at his head, neck, and shoulders. He still looks great, still really piratey, but it's this, what is like supposed to be the bottom of his pirate jacket. So from here to here is a vinyl overlay, and I don't see a good way to remove it. So this is gonna be able to hinder waist, hips, thighs, knees. It keeps him from doing a lot. But let's go ahead and just look at each of the points and we'll see more what I'm talking about. So the sculpt is really nice. I love the sort of like partially winking eye. I think that it's incredibly piratey, and everything in this story is sort of a wink to the audience. There's a lot of breaking the fourth wall. There's a lot of really meta stuff, like talking to what seems like he's talking to the writers of the comic book, but then he actually has been going insane more so than usual. So you find out that he's kind of like, or you're not really sure if he's talking to himself, especially with the fourth wall breaking. So there's like everything Deadpool in this, but everything is just sort of like a wink at us. So I love this choice of facial expression. The pirate hat is really, really cool. And as you can see, even though he has this scarf tied around his head, we can still get a really great look up, down, right, or left and right. So the head works great, especially once you remove the cape, because there is some hindrance there with the high collar cape. And I think he still looks great and really piratey without it. Now, let's be real. I'm going to have him on my shelf with everything, all of the regalia. But if you take that off, you do get a little bit more movement at the upper body. So let's go ahead and look at his arms. They're excellent. And without that cape on, you can see that everything works. So even though the costume was going to sort of hinder everything, they didn't cut corners on giving us the normal points of articulation that we like to see. So that's really good. So as we're going through them, we can see that everything functions the way that it's supposed to. We have a turn here in the shoulder, in the bicep. We have the really great elbows, a turn in the wrist, and the wrist itself bends, let's get focused again, forward and back. So we have a great range of motion in the arms. Now the torso, we don't have the typical bending at the high portion of the torso. They moved that down, which is great, but it's still pretty slight just because of everything that's blocking the movement. These sculpted pistols that he has on his costume prevent the really good bow forward, but we still do get a little bit of that. So I'm impressed with what they tried to do to make it up to us since so much is covered. You can use that. It's not the most functional, but you could probably come up with some good things to do with it. Now, there's literally no point in me exploring the lateral lift on this because we can't, but we can sort of get a better look at the legs. What we're gonna run into here is that this is as high with the slit here as you can sort of lift the leg out. So even I was trying to do, I thought it would be really funny to do like a Captain Morgan pose. You can't get it with him. It's really difficult to bend his knees because of his costume. It just sort of blocks everything. You can't lift the leg up, but I will say that the joints are functional. We're not going to be able to go through all of them just because the costume prevents it. If you were to cut this off, you would be able to do everything that you can do with any articulate figure. There's the calf turn, and the feet are great as usual, the way that I've been liking them, very flexible. So if you have the inclination to get an X-Acto knife and sort of like slice this up the middle right here, you could probably still pose him with it on, and then you'll see the points of articulation underneath. He has a, you know, a functional turning waist. He has the bend in the torso will probably be better. His thighs would be able to lift out. He has a turn in the thigh that you'll be able to get great use out of. But with the way that his costume goes, it's just difficult to explore all that. So depending on what you want to do with him, if you really want to play with him, you might want to get two. You might want to have one to put on your shelf and one to sort of dissect so that you can actually use all of the functional articulate points. That said, this is such a good looking figure. It looks, looking at the reference material again, here is the Pearson cover. And forgive me for the color, it's the best I could do with this, but so here's the Pearson cover. And here is our pool. It's really spot on perfect, exactly what Pearson gave us. And so I adore this figure. For my very first Deadpool, even though it's sort of a side story costume, like everything about Wade Wilson is a side story costume and a wink and sort of sarcastic and silly. So it just makes sense. Like this would of course have to be my first Deadpool figure. The accessories are awesome. They sit in his hands. It's simple, but it's exactly what was in the reference material. And you guys know that I really appreciate that. Here's what it looks like when you have both of his swords back there. I think that's a cool look. So if you have both of his swords behind his back, it also creates kind of a cool skull and crossbones vibe. And actually, it kind of makes sense sometimes for Wade to have his head turned all the way around. Who knows what he's up to? So you can create some really fun looks with this, even though talking about articulation, it just doesn't really make sense with this figure because the costume does hinder so much of it. But I really love how true it is to the source material. Here's his little DP painted on here. The gold is shiny and beautiful on the filigree on his costume. And, you know, the cloak looks great. It's raggedy and worn like a pirate, but it also has sort of a neat matte finish to it. And, of course, his lovely ascot here. So I love this Piratepool figure. I mean, I think looking at it in the package, you know that it's going to be a lot of fun and it's great looking, but getting it in hand is really satisfying, even though, you know, he's not really a playable toy. I think that any Deadpool figure has more playability just because he's such a wacky character. So the things that you do with him might not make sense in the real world or in a normal human figure, but they will with him. So this is our first Deadpool in the series, and it's a winner for me. I really, really like it. I love just how true it is to the imagery of the comic book. So let me know what you guys are thinking of Piratepool. What are you going to do with him? Is anybody taking the vinyl off and seeing like how he works underneath? It feels kind of pointless to me. You can just get a regular Deadpool for that. But if you are doing any sort of customs with him, let me know. Let me see pictures on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll let you guys know what I think. So again, I'm going to put it to you. What do you guys want to see next in the series? We've got another Deadpool. Everything looks really great. After this, we're going to save Strong Guy for last, but any figure that you want to see, let me know, and we will do that next. I will be back with you guys the day after tomorrow with another video, and make sure that if you haven't already, to subscribe and turn on your notification bell, because there are lots of great videos coming up. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye, friends!